celebration, and service. We are a vibrant, inclusive, spiritual community, and we are so happy you joined us today. Please come in.
We'll begin our Sunday service this morning like we begin every other Sunday service with the daily word. And today's daily word is Easter. I recognize the risen Christ in family, friends, and my spiritual community. Early in the evening on the day of resurrection, Jesus, unrecognized, joins two of his followers as they journey from Jerusalem toward the nearby village of Emmaus. Accepting an invitation to stay and share a meal, Jesus takes bread, blesses, and breaks it, then gives it to his hosts. In that moment, their eyes are opened. They recognize Jesus, and alive in their hearts, he vanishes from their sight. Later on, the two explain to others how the risen Christ became a living presence to them in the fellowship of breaking bread. Easter celebrates the risen Christ, an immortal presence freed from all limitation, awaiting discovery in every person and life event. I recognize the risen Christ in shared experiences with family, friends, and my spiritual community. And we read in Luke chapter 24, verse 31, "Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight." So now let's just take a few moments to close our outer eyes and go within. Father, Mother God, on this Easter Sunday, we pause to reflect on the spiritual meaning of Jesus Christ's resurrection. We recognize that Christ's victory over the tomb symbolizes the potential within each individual to free themselves from error thoughts of lack and limitations, and we celebrate this realization, the Christ light within each one of us, and give thanks for the many ways it illuminates our path. And so it is. Amen.
Mary had a little lamb whose heart was pure as gold, and ever since the dawn of time his story has been told. He lived a life so full of love that all the world could see, and then this little lamb laid down his life for you and me. Ba-ba, little lamb born in Bethlehem. Ba-ba, little lamb died and rose again. Now every lamb who goes astray need never be alone, for Jesus is the Lamb of God. and he will lead them home. Baba, little lamb, born in Bethlehem. Baba, this little lamb is coming back again. Happy Easter, everybody. Miss and love you all. God bless and stay safe.
Once a man, his wife, and his incredibly cranky mother-in-law were vacationing in the Holy Land when the mother-in-law suddenly made her transition. An undertaker told the couple, "You can have her body shipped back home for $5,000, or you can have her buried right here in the Holy Land for $150. The gentleman conferred with his wife and then decided to have her body shipped home. The undertaker couldn't quite understand that, and he said, "Well, sir, I don't understand why you would pay $5,000 to have her shipped home when you can have her buried here in this sacred, holy place." And the husband looked at the undertaker and he said, "You know what? I understand that over 2,000 years ago, a man died and was buried here. On the third day, he arose from the dead. I just cannot take that chance." Sorry to all the mothers-in-law who are listening today. So, we do appreciate your being here to share your light and love on this Easter Sunday as we join together to celebrate what is considered to be the holiest day in the Christian calendar, the day Jesus overcame death just as he said he would. Last week, we witnessed Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem on what we now call Palm Sunday. How do we juxtapose the image of the crowd shouting Hosanna to the highest on Sunday with the image of Jesus standing before Pilate on the very next Friday and the crowds chanting, "Crucify him"? Things certainly seem to go downhill quickly, or did they? In the days following the celebratory procession into the Old City, Jesus continues sharing parables in the courtyard, explaining to the multitudes that the kingdom of heaven is not in some faraway future place for a select few. Jesus taught it is in the midst of you, it is within you. No rituals or sacrifices are necessary. There is no veil, no separation between you and God, only a beautiful bond of oneness and love. Not surprisingly, during the week, the chief priests and elders challenged Jesus. At one point, a Pharisee, expert in Hebrew law, tests Jesus, asking, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Remember, in addition to the original 10, there were hundreds of dietary, purity, and religious laws in effect, all spelled out in the Hebrew Bible. And Jesus is not the least bit thrown by the question. He simplifies centuries of religious rules into 3 simple sentences. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And a second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus' revolutionary message throughout his ministry is that God is love and we are all one in that love. No exceptions, no inequalities. Every single one of us is created in the image and likeness of the divine. And those in power, the occupied foreign army and the chief priests and scribes, could not, would not tolerate such a message. And so the events of the week unfold. Jesus engages in private teaching with his disciples, shares the Passover meal with them, is betrayed by Judas, arrested by the temple guard, and subjected to multiple trials. In John, after he is taken by the Jewish leaders to the Roman governor, Pilate, Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is from another place. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth." Pontius Pilate, acting under the authority of Caesar, then sentences Jesus to crucifixion. The charge was that he proclaimed to be King of the Jews. Crucifixion was the capital punishment of choice for anyone opposing the Roman state. Now, interestingly, in the 4 canonical Gospels, there is very little about the actual crucifixion of Jesus, about 50 verses total, depending on how one counts them. The important point, and one that we emphasize in Unity, is that the events of Friday are not the end of the story. As the Interpreter's Bible says, the modern Western Church lingers upon Calvary, taking the cross as its symbol. But the New Testament itself keeps exalting first of all, most of all, last of all, in the empty tomb, finding in it the proof that the power of God is really over all. In Unity, we see the crucifixion not as a tragedy of darkness, sin, and death, but as a tunnel through which Jesus passes, showing us the way from darkness to light. As one Bible scholar wrote, Friday was then, Sunday is now. The 4 Gospels each tell a somewhat different version of the Easter story, but one common thread runs through them all, and that is the presence of Mary Magdalene. In the Gospel of John, chapter 20, the story begins. Early on the first day of the week, while it is still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and that would be John. And she said to them, "They have taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Paraphrasing here, hearing the news, Peter and John spring to action immediately, race to the cave, peer in, and find the body gone, just as Mary had reported. Then the disciples returned to their homes, back to hiding, really. John tells us it was still dark that Sunday morning when Mary headed for the tomb in the garden. He doesn't mention the other women with her, but did you notice that Mary says, "We don't know where they have laid him"? And according to the Synoptic Gospels, other women were there, but Mary Magdalene led the way. For just before sunset on Friday, the women had watched Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus lay Jesus' body in the tomb and roll the great stone over its entrance. They returned early Sunday morning on a sacred mission to properly anoint Jesus' body because his burial before Sunday on Friday, according to Jewish law, had been hurried. Let's return to the story of what happens after Peter and John leave. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white, one seated where Jesus' body had been, where his head had been, and the other at his foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" And she said, "They have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not recognize him. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said one word to her, one word, her name, Mary. She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," meaning rabbi, revered teacher. And Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them all that Jesus had said to her. So we can just picture this moment in the garden and hear Jesus gently, lovingly, softly whispering her name, Mary. We can only imagine what indescribable joy she felt when finally she grasped the meaning of the empty tomb. And Jesus sends Mary, a woman in a strictly patriarchal society, to go tell his disciples the good news. She delivers the very first Easter message. In this sense, she has been called the first apostle. So we might ask this Easter morning, what is her apostolic message for us? First, remember that while others came and went, Mary stayed. She exhibited the dogged determination to repeat her question again and again in her quest to find the body of Jesus. Mary was expecting to find a corpse, and she found so much more than she expected, didn't she? How ironic that Mary was searching for her Lord and Master in the tomb, and he was standing so close by. Mary experiences a transformational, mystical encounter with the risen Christ and with the universal Christ principle. And so this beautiful spiritual Easter story holds profound insight for all of us. The story shows us how we can move from the death and darkness of the tomb to the light of Easter. Mary Magdalene symbolizes the soul searching for the light of the Christ, the embodiment of all divine ideas and potential perfection. UD co-founder Charles Fillmore tells us that the resurrection takes place every time we rise to Jesus' realization of the indwelling Christ Spirit. Easter is about our recognizing, reawakening, and reconnecting to our true essence. But first, the stone must be removed. Remember Jesus' journey to Jerusalem, where he stands before his journey to Jerusalem, where he stands before the grave of his good friend Lazarus and commands, "Roll away the stone." In the book, The Lazarus Blueprint, the Jaffalas write, "Before Lazarus can be raised, the stone must be removed." And a stone is not a situation in our outer lives. It never is. The stone is not the loss of a loved one, the actions of another, the divorce, or the pandemic we currently face. The stone is the amalgamation of beliefs that we can use to allow ourselves to keep from claiming our divine birthright and all the powers of the Christ. Those beliefs might be based on thoughts of lack, limitation, illness, not enoughness, or unworthiness. Our stone might be resentments we hold, or the lack of love we express for ourselves and others. And once the stone is rolled away, our true seeking begins. With Mary Magdalene's determination to persist, even when things seem inexplicable or impossible, we rediscover the Christ our being. Like Mary, when we turn our attention to the garden, representing divine ideas and all the goodness of God, we rediscover the indwelling Christ and understand that Jesus said, "Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." We can never be separated from the divine love that we have except in our own consciousness. Finally, Mary Magdalene shows us the power of spiritual intention, something we've talked about a lot. Standing outside that cave sobbing, her only intention is to give Jesus the honor of a decent burial as a gesture of final respect and love. She inspires every single one of us to ask, how can I serve the Christ of my being? Franciscan priest, Father Richard Rohr, whom my mentor, Reverend Russell Highland, calls the best unity minister he knows, Reverend Father Rohr writes, what if we miss the point of who Christ is, what Christ is, and where Christ is? I believe that a Christian is simply one who has learned to see Christ everywhere and in everyone. Understanding the universal or cosmic Christ can change the way we relate to creation, to other religions, to other people, to ourselves, and to God. Knowing and experiencing the Christ can bring about a major shift in consciousness, like Saul's experience on the road to Damascus, and I would respectfully add, like Mary's experience in the garden. We won't be the same, we will never be the same, after encountering, realizing the risen Christ. So Mary Magdalene's story reminds all of us that we are on this earth to express the qualities of God in good times and in times of darkness, just as Jesus did. We are here to love, we are here to serve, we are here to be God's expression, to give something to the world that only we can give. That is our divine mission, and we can't let any temporary condition of this world keep us from fulfilling it. As we peer through the darkness we all face at this time, we look to the light at the end and ask, what will things be like when this pandemic is over? What will be the grace in moving forward? Will we feel more intensely our oneness and connection with each other? Will we see every human being as our neighbor and behold the Christ in every single one? Will we be more resilient, stronger, cleaner? I believe the message of Easter this year especially is that the love Jesus demonstrated was greater than any force on this earth. It was wiser than the Jewish leaders, more powerful than the Roman Empire, and stronger even than death. Jesus showed us that we can lift our minds out of the tomb of doubt, despair, and darkness, and allow our spiritual nature the room to express and transform our lives and the world. Through the power and presence of God, we rise to a new level of Christ consciousness, become all that we are intended to be, and just like Jesus, we rise triumphant. Have a blessed Easter.
There's a holy hush around us as God's glory fills the place. I've touched the hem of His garment. I can almost see His face, and my heart is overflowing with the fullness of His joy. I know without a doubt that I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel His mighty power and His grace. glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
So now I invite you, if you have not already done so, to close your eyes, relax your body, and take several deep, cleansing breaths. Breathing in, breathing out, knowing that every single breath is an expression of the eternal life force of the divine. Open your heart and soul to this holy moment, to the Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. Let that same Spirit enfold, surround, and dwell up in you now. In this consciousness, know that today is the day, the perfect day, to allow yourself to be lifted up to a higher consciousness of spiritual awareness. When Peter and John looked into that burial cave, all they saw was emptiness. But when Mary Magdalene looked in, she saw two angels representing divine messengers of God. And although she didn't respond immediately to this encounter, something in her subconscious must have quickened, activated, because she turned away from the tomb and immediately found Jesus the man, Jesus the living, eternal Christ. And through the grace of God, you have the same opportunity, not just this Sunday, this Easter Sunday, but every day, every moment. In the face of any and all challenges, you can turn just as Mary Magdalene turned, away from the darkness of the tomb, away from the shadows of illusion, away from the stones of error, to the power of God and the truth of your being. Feel in your heart and soul the true message of Easter, that you are an internalized expression of the divine, here to express your Christ powers of peace, love, and joy. And I now invite you to take into your hearts and souls the beautiful words of James Dillard Freeman in the poem, "The One We All Might Be." There was one who showed us what we all might be, what height of fulfillment, what depth of compassion, what breadth of understanding might be ours if we were all that we might be. Ours is to love with a love that excludes none, but gives itself to all. To have a sense of right values, placing spiritual things first, yet using spiritual powers to transform the physical world. To be a master of self and superior to circumstance. To be humble of spirit, yet conscious of eternal worth. To be at peace, yet to be a center of energy. To be God-centered, a focus through which God power flows in joyous achievement. To be unlimited in vision and to attain what we envision. To experience the fullness of compassion, yet to live to the fullness of joy. To be able to help all who turn to us, to bless the lives we touch, to turn sorrow into joy, hate into love, sickness into health, lack into fulfillment, death into life. To be one with the essential harmony at the center of things, of all things. This is what we all might be. Let's take this into our hearts and souls for a few seconds in the silence. And so now, as we all come together as a greater church community, we celebrate the joy of Easter and set the intention to be all that we might be. We open our hearts to the awareness of the Christ presence in ourselves and all others. We open our souls to spiritual transformation this day and all the days to come. We bear witness to the truth of divine love and the peace that passes all understanding. And we are so grateful. And we say in the name of the living, loving, eternal Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Jan, for that beautiful, personal, inspiring message for Easter. For those of you watching this morning, please know that although we are temporarily separated in physicality, we are always one in spirit. Here at First Unity, we are committed to providing ongoing spiritual reinforcement for you at this time in particular and always. If you would like individual prayer support, please complete the form on our website at unitystl.org, or you can call the church office at 314-845-8540. There are also Silent Unity Prayer Associates who are available to pray directly with you at 816-919-2000. They're currently taking calls from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night during the pandemic. But during overnight hours, prayer requests can be sent via Facebook, the YouPray app, or unity.org/prayer. The YouPray app also has beautiful 3-minute meditations that change from month to month. And the latest way to connect with Silent Unity is through Alexa, by saying something like, "Alexa, open positive prayer." You can even ask Alexa for specific prayer topics, including prosperity, comfort, and healing. Even though this Easter will be one where we need to observe social distancing, let's find opportunities to turn within through prayer and meditation to that inner sanctuary within our own souls. Take time to remember that we are one in presence and power, greater than any challenge or fear in this relative world, even in this pandemic. We'll conclude today's service with a song that the choir and Dean have sung on Easter Sunday. The name of the song is "Was It a Morning Like This?" by Jim Krogert. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Happy Easter.